The January 12th, 2021 Finance Committee meeting of the Carlynton School District Board of Directors is called to order. Director Simzik, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Yes, I will.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the secretary please call the roll?
Director Apple,
Here.
Director Hunter,
Did you say
Director
push card?
Hunter,
Here.
Director Mendoza,
I'm here.
Director O'Brien,
Here.
Director Simsik,
Here.
Director Zalewski.
Was that Zalewski?
Yes.
Here.
Director Pushkar,
Here.
Director Hunter,
Here.
Director Frank, and Director Shriver.
Here.
Does everybody else hear the echo that I hear? It's not.
The lower, also the lower left of your computer.
I did.
You did.
So Dr. Kreiter, do you have a report for us?
Thank you, Mr. Shriver. Yes, we'd like to start with Mr. Morelli for our finance report. Mr. Morelli joins us with a wealth of experience from a variety of school districts over the course of several years. He is filling in currently as the director of our business manager, while Mr. Jeswick is making his transition to South Fayette, and then we are waiting for Mr. Keith Bilby to join us on January 25th. So, Mr. Morelli, I'll turn things over to you for your finance report.
Thank you, Dr. Kreiter. Hope everybody can hear me. First meeting here at Carlynton School District, and I have to open up with the budget. How's that? So I have that dubious honor to deliver a preliminary budget to the board. So before I do that, I want to go over the timelines that are in front of us for the 21-22 budget process under Act 1 of 2006. The timeline, and I know the board members have that, and hopefully you can see it on the screen. So as we go through the timeline, the first one, starting January 28th, indicates that the district has two options. One is to propose a preliminary budget, make it available for inspection, or adopt a resolution stating that the district will not exceed the index rate as established by the state. So this district, we've done it in the past, you've done it in the past. We've prepared a budget. We prepared a budget because we might be able to take an opportunity for some exceptions, either a debt service exception, a retirement exception, social, special ed exception. Normally, the debt service and I think retirement are non-existent anymore, but special ed is. This district has applied for that and has been approved that. So we're going to prepare a preliminary budget rather than doing a resolution. So by January 28th, the board has to approve a preliminary budget. Next timeline would be February 7th, and that would give the public notice of the intent to adopt the 2021-22 preliminary budget. So we have till February 7th to do that. The other deadlines that we have to hit under the timeline, February 17th, adopt that 21-22 preliminary budget. So once that occurs, then we have February 22nd to submit the budget to the State Department of Education. So those are our deadlines. That's what we have to meet. Those are pretty stringent that we have to follow. If you can go to the next slide, who's ever operating the slide there. Next page. Okay, well, if they can get to it. What I did was I summarized for the board rather than going through this other document. Go to another page, hit the next page on this one. One more. It will be the, in any event. So what I put for the board was, okay, the proposed preliminary budget by January 28th. So at our January 11th meeting here, we have the preliminary proposed budget. Adopting the budget by February 7th, we could do that. This district could do that by January 25th. Board's adoption of the preliminary budget by February 15th, and will be within those timelines. So it's within the next 30 days, we can submit a proposed preliminary budget for consideration. All right, so let's look at the budget presentation. Change the slide. Let's get to the budget presentation if you could, please. Next page. Next page. Okay, so here's what I prepared for the board's consideration. I looked at your 1920 actuals, your 2021 budget, where we are year to date for 2021, and then the preliminary budget for 21-22. So as we look at the revenue sources, as you know, our revenue sources come from 3 areas: local sources, state sources, and federal sources. Under our local sources, the main local source is real estate taxes. So I looked at your real estate assessment valuation. You had in 1920, you had $710 million worth of assessed value times your millage rate. That will give us our real estate taxes. So for 1920, our real estate taxes were $15,557,000. 2021, $16,199,000. So we're looking at 21-22 at $17,000,001. We still are looking to get our final numbers from the county that will determine our assessed value. Once we hone in on that, we can make further adjustments to the real estate tax collection. Current Act 511 taxes are your earned income tax, delinquent tax, or earned income tax, deed transfer tax. So we have 2.2 million for 2020, 21, 22. We estimate about 1.9. Delinquent taxes, 731,000. Current budget 791. We kept it at 791. Interest earnings, 1920. We had a significant return on our investment, about $172,000. Current budget is $20,000. So there's $150,000 we need to look at. Interest rates have dropped. We're not getting any return on those investments. So we kept it at $20,000. Other revenue sources, 450, current budget 385. We dropped it a little bit to 289. So the total local sources for 21, 22, 20,250,591. Again, those are estimates. We will, from here till June 30th, when the board has to approve a final budget, we will look at those numbers. So let's go down to the middle of the page, 7,000 category, which are your state sources. The biggest being there, your basic subsidy, tuition, special ed, health services, our property tax reduction, transportation, Social Security, retirement. Current budget is $9,000,003. We're slightly under that at $9,000,002. So we didn't increase it that much. We don't know what the state's going to do. We know that there's a big hole in the state's budget. We know that the governor has proposed maybe using some CARES money to fill that gap. I don't know if the federal government's going to allow that to occur. The superintendents won't get the state's budget till February. So these are our best guess estimates at this point. Again, we'll revisit those numbers as information and data comes back to us. Let's go down to the bottom. Federal sources, 8,000. Current budget, 1.2 million. That includes some ESSER's money, CARES money from the federal government. We know that we're not going to get that in 21, 22. So we dropped that back down to what's more realistic, 751,000. So our best guess estimate at this point for total revenues for the 21, 22 school year is 30,301,313. All right, page 2. There you go. Okay, so now let's look at our expenditures. I broke it down into our objects. Obviously, salary and benefits are the biggest piece of our expenditure plan. At probably 70% of our budget are in those two categories. And then we have purchase of professional services, purchase of property, other purchases, supplies, furniture, equipment, bond payment, and others. So for the current year, 2021, our budget is 30,557,765. We're slightly above that. We're at 33,012,039. So when you look at the revenues at 30 million and our expenditures are estimated at 33, we're 2.7 million out. Don't get too excited about that now. This is a preliminary proposed budget that, again, the board will have an opportunity to do a final budget come June 30th. So we don't like these numbers as they sit. We need to look at them. We're 6 months into our current year. And as a lot of issues have brought to our expenditure plan, our revenue plan, we need to monitor that closely. We need to keep looking at that. So this is our best guess estimate. That'll put us at 2.7 million out. Our fund balance is around 2.6. So we're out $20,000. So it looks like we're going to, at this plan, we would use all of our fund balance. Do I anticipate that being the final say? No, but we have to, the state requires us to do the preliminary budget. This is our best guess estimate at this time. So don't get too excited about, okay, hey, this isn't balanced. No, it's not balanced. Yeah, it's using a lot of our fund balance. No, we don't want to do that. So we're gonna massage that and review that. But we have to file a budget. They require us to file a budget, and the state has those requirements on local school board. Hey, we want a budget from you. However, on their side of the ledger, this year they didn't give us a full budget. They gave us a 6-month budget. Now they approved us for the final 6 months. But this is a proposed preliminary. It's something that we have to get on paper. We will again review all the numbers with the superintendent, and we'll get this thing down to what's manageable for us. So I don't want the board to get too excited that you have a budget out there that's unrealistic. Well, it's not what we want. It's not what we're going to finalize, and I feel confident that that's not going to occur. But again, to put some numbers together for a proposed budget, that's what we did today. So, Dr. Carter, I don't know if you have any questions or the board.
Thank you, Mr. Morelli. Any questions from members of the board?
None. Thank you for putting this together.
I know it's not what we want to hear right now, but it's only 6 months, so it's early. Don't hit the panic button yet. We'll get this thing under control. So thank you.
Every year is a challenge to build the overall district budget. There's a lot of things to take into consideration. As we shared in the past, this year has many exceptions that we've talked about due to the COVID pandemic.
Whoever started the conversation with every year, your voice is extremely faint.
How much of our revenue continues to come in, how we projected those revenues, and along with our expenditures as well, to be able to close out this year's budget at the same time while we design next year's budget as well. If there's no further questions from the board, I will transition into the superintendent's report. If we move to the next slide.
Michelle, we can't hear anything.
Our family members and to the community with a recent survey in regard to return to in-person instruction. this year, again, it has been a challenge on a variety of levels to provide that instruction in a face-to-face environment. So as far as reaching out to our families to collect additional information, we found a lot of the information extremely valuable. So we appreciate the number of families. We had 600 families respond to the survey, which accounted for approximately 950 of our students. Okay, I apologize for the audio not working properly. Hopefully it's working now. Mr. McDade, do we have a thumbs up that the audio is getting out? Okay, thank you. So as I started and made the transition as far as Mr. Morelli and what he provided in the budget, each year is definitely a challenge to build a district budget, especially this year, given the challenges with the COVID pandemic and the impact that it's had financially, not only on the Carlynton School District, but many other municipalities and governments as well, as far as operating costs. But we will continue to take a look at our operating costs throughout the remainder of this school year, and then also take a look at as we continue to build next year's budget as well, taking all those things into consideration to make sure that we design a responsible budget for the school district. Recently, we issued a survey to our families to get some additional data back on returning to in-person instruction. We're very thankful for the number of families that responded to the survey. We had nearly 605 families respond, which accounted for about 950 total students from our population in K through 12. What we did this time with our survey, instead of just putting up graphs and charts on the website, we also included specific comments that were provided by our families as well. And that information is available on our website, which can be found. And what we did was we took a lot of the survey data and categorized it. But as far as looking at the basic survey results from our families, 65% of our families were in favor of returning to in-person instruction on January 19th, 70% in favor on January 25th. And then we also asked a question that focused in on increasing the number of instructional days per week. Currently at K through 3, we were offering 4 days, and then 4 through 12, we were at 2 days on Tuesday and Thursday. There is an interest at all levels to increase the number of days, more in favor at the secondary level in grades 7 through 12 with 61%. It's about split 50-50 on the 4 through 6, and then a little bit over 50% at 55% in K through 3. That information is valuable, and as we've said in the past in regard to our reopening plans, our goal is to continue to increase the number of instructional days to get students back into the building. We have recognized that keeping students in remote learning poses many challenges for students on the learning side of things, and then also social impacts, learning impacts, a lot of different things that come into play when we keep students out of the buildings with remote instruction. So on the next slide gets into a little bit more about the survey comments themselves. We didn't list the survey comments on this slide. However, if you do visit our website, they are all there. And we categorized those by themes. We had 86 families responding back with comments to remain fully remote. 7 families had concerns with health issues at home. 141 families wanted to return to full in-person. And then we also had 26 who were a little indifferent as far as their plans or their uncertainty of as far as returning their children to school. And when you look at the comments and you move through those, I think you can see how dramatic of a difference there is from one family household to another in regard to plans. There are strong voices on both sides, and that is something that we recognized with our plan, with our reopening plans, was to
allow the opportunity for students to attend in person, and then also allow students to remain at home. Certainly it's easiest when we open the school doors to all of our students and all students can attend at the same time. The challenges with offering some hybrid level of instruction where certain percentages of students at home make it a challenge on learning and also on teaching. So on the next slide, I included some additional related and valuable information just to give the community an update on vaccines, which I know that you have heard a lot of information on news outlets with the vaccine. At the present time, the vaccines are scheduled into different phases. Our school nurses, as far as school personnel, are in phase 1A. We've had our school nurses reach out to local areas, and all three of our nurses do have plans, have either received the vaccine or have plans to get the vaccine and have appointments scheduled. So we're happy with that. We did have to do a little bit of legwork on our own to get that to happen. Educators are in phase 1B, and that term educator is defined very broadly to include teachers, administrators, support staff, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, maintenance and facilities, custodial groups. So basically anybody who works within that school entity, bus drivers as well, are considered to be educators or in that phase 1B. When we looked at the number of educators across Allegheny County, that's about 20,000 vaccines that need to be delivered just out to the educational force in general. And in working with Allegheny County Department of Health and working with Department of Health at the state level, at the present time, there is not a clear and specific plan on how those vaccines are going to be administered and released. So that is something that we are looking for, is some very clear plans on when and how those vaccines will be administered to educators. The earliest projection that we have heard to this point would occur in February, definitely not before the close of this month. Some other notable information there: the Department of Health and Pennsylvania Department of Education also came out with statements earlier this week, late last week, encouraging schools across the Commonwealth to open instruction to elementary age students and also targeted populations for that in-person instruction. And the information that they're looking at there is a meta-analysis of a variety of studies that have been put together in regard to having students work remotely versus having students attend in person. And their conjectures and conclusions off of that meta-analysis has concluded that it's more harmful for the elementary level students to remain at home for the remote instruction as opposed to being able to offer in person. It runs a little bit contradictory to what the state has offered before, especially to those communities who are in substantial. As far as substantial spread, which Allegheny County is in, along with many other counties across the state, they are looking to bring students back into the classroom at the elementary level and the targeted populations as well, even if you are in substantial. Now, along with that, they're looking for districts to continue to look at their mitigation efforts, their health and safety plans, to make sure that they're creating safe environments for both students and staff and all community members as well. So we will continue to implement our school safety plan. We'll continue to monitor our local data. But I think that's an important piece of information as well, coming out from the state and Department of Health. Some safety concerns, or staffing concerns rather, on the next page with related information. At this time, as we mentioned before, substitutes are very difficult to come across, and getting substitutes to come in and fill in for teachers who are either absent, who are on FMLA, who are on medical sabbaticals, certainly becomes a challenge to our staffing model. Whereas education is much different than other areas of our economy, such as food service and outlets and malls and places like that. A little bit easier to look at a staffing model to keep those places open. When you look at education, you look at schools, we're very much reliant upon our teaching staff and being able to remain healthy and be able to report to school. Some of our staff members do have some health concerns, which do pose a risk for them being in the schoolhouse. Those are things that we need to take into consideration. And we've worked very closely with our staff to put in programs for FMLA leave. The CARES Act had additional programs in place. But that remains to be a challenge as well. When we have teachers out, we need to have substitutes come in. If we can't find substitutes, then we rely on our teaching staff to cover during free periods. And we talked about that at our last meeting as well, that when we have other teachers covering for other classes, makes it a challenge for the instructional component, and then also makes it a challenge for the learning component as well. Just some review of data in regard to the number of COVID cases in our schools. We continue to track and monitor and continue to keep in touch with families and also with our staff members as well. At the present time, we have 4 active cases in the district. That includes 3 staff and 1 student. Several of those are towards the end of their quarantine time. And then just in general, as far as quarantine due to either contracting the virus or being exposed to, 4 students are in quarantine and 7 staff members are in quarantine. So just as a reminder, this data is updated on a daily basis for active cases, and then at least on a weekly basis in regard to number of individuals who are quarantined. And that information can be found on our website as well. In regard to responding to COVID cases in the schoolhouse, the next slide is a review from our last meeting as well, and just walks through the different steps that school districts must take if positive cases occur in the schoolhouse. And those are broken down into for us, 2 categories: small schools and medium-sized schools. And this table here just illustrates the thresholds that if we hit 2 to 4 cases at our elementary school and 4 to 6 cases at our secondary level, then we are required by the state to shut that school down anywhere between 3 to 7 days or up to 14 days. And there is an asterisk next to those statements there that we are able to do that turnaround time quicker, the 3 to 7 days or the 14 days, if we can conduct our contact tracing and if we can conduct the cleaning regulations that the state requires. Then we can reopen our schools faster than that 3 to 7 window or that 14 plus window. So we will continue to follow those guidelines as we move towards returning to in-person instruction. Next slide before I turn it over to the board for some comment and discussion is my recommendation is to consider to return to in-person instruction with all students grades K through 12 at 4 days a week, and putting a date in there by January 25th at the latest. I know our survey information that we sent out talked about 2 dates there, the 19th and the 25th. I would definitely like to shoot by January 25th at the latest. And they're also at the same time looking to increase the number of instructional days per week for all students K through 12, puts the entire district on the same model at 4 instructional days per week, using Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, leaving Wednesday for the remote instruction, and provides additional opportunity for our staff to work with students who remain at home for remote instruction on a consistent basis. We will continue to live stream our instruction for all students who are unable or who are uncomfortable to returning to in-person instruction, and then also asking the board to allow us to continue to search for long-term substitutes who can provide coverage for teachers on short-term and both daily types of absences. That piece, I think, is an important part, bringing in a long-term substitute. Generally, we bring long-term substitutes in for positions that are above 90 days of continuous absence. If we could look at a model where we bring in long-term substitutes, bring them in through our teacher contract on step 1, and basically allow them to serve in a capacity of a daily substitute at that rate, and then also to fill in for short-term vacancies, which some of our FMLAs that are coming up could be anywhere between, we have some small for 2 weeks where we have quick turnaround minor surgery procedures, and then more long-term into maternity leaves or other types of medical sabbaticals will help give us some additional coverage, which will have the other impact of having a consistent instructor in for classes where there is not a teacher, and then also frees up our instructional staff to work and use their preparation periods for what they're designed to, and that is to prepare for instruction, to provide our students with feedback, and to be available to them to provide additional support and instruction to them. So I'll conclude with that recommendation, and I'll turn it over to the rest of the board for any types of comments. If we choose to look at taking any type of board action this evening, we will have to open it up to public comment, which we will most likely do anyway. However, did want to open it up to the board for deliberation at this time.
I have a couple of comments and questions, I guess, actually. So thank you to everybody who responded to the survey. First of all, there were, many comments there, and I read through each one of them, and I really appreciate different perspectives, because we can all think from our own point of view, but it's really good to hear various points of view. One of the things that kind of stood out to me in the comments is it seemed that people were looking for consistency and looking for, once we make a decision, for us to stick with the decision, because the back and forth is really, really hard on families. So, I don't know how that would factor into whether we decide to go back on the 18th or the 25th, and how staffing plays into that. So I'd like you, if you could, to talk about that a little bit. Another thing that stood out to me is, good communication is key. And we have a lot of comments of people who are, trying to do the online learning and from home learning. And some people don't have a choice. They have to do that. And it seems deficient. So, I'd like to, feel comfortable that they're getting good, high quality instruction from home just as well as they are in the classroom. And I wonder how we're addressing that. Another person made a comment about, when they're in school, is there a time or place that they can have some mask free time? Because, to sit in a classroom in a school all day long in a mask is really, really difficult. So is there a way to build that into, what we're attempting to do here? I think that was the things off the top of my mind and the things that I had. So if you could talk about those things, I would appreciate it.
Absolutely. Good questions.
Thank
you. And in regard to staffing, I would say as far as opening up, we do have, it ebbs and flows from one week to the next in regard to staffing and individual issues, just rising out of health issues. I know that our staffing model does open up a little bit more beginning on the 25th as compared to the 19th. And for us, opening up a little bit could be the difference between 2 or 3 teachers, which can make a significant impact. And that's about what it is for the comparison between the 19th and the 25th there. The consistency of instruction is extremely important. That is part of our goal has always been is that when we make that decision to do something, when we want to remain in that model, some of those things are outside of our control. Like I shared with the attestation form that we signed with the state does require us to close our schools in the event we do get additional COVID cases. And that can be identified down to individual building levels. So say, for example, we would have an issue just at Carlynton where we'd have an outbreak of 2 to 4 students, but the rest of the district is okay. That would just allow us to close Carlynton while keeping Carnegie and the high school open. With the new strand of COVID coming through, there's the B117, and then that has hit Pennsylvania as well as some other states. And then there are some other strains as well that have not made it into the United States. They are looking at those strands as being more contagious, but not necessarily more harmful, but they could potentially be more contagious. And so that's a component that we can't necessarily project that does have an impact on our consistency of our model. But I think it is important to move towards a model that will be consistent and sustainable. And part of the long-term substitute plans of getting additional substitutes in, I think, can help with that sustainability. The masking breaks was another component there. And masking breaks, we are permitted to continue to do masking breaks. We can do those in the classroom, provided we do them safely. Working with students at our elementary level, when we do mask breaks, we also put on the face shields. And that's when students are sitting at their desks and they are seated at distances. The face shields do qualify as a mask, or we've been using the mask as our most strict type of interpretation of that because it's the most safest. But we can have those mask breaks, and then also recess time. Students are permitted to remove their masks outdoor for periods of time as well to get those mask breaks in. There was something else that you had mentioned, and I wrote it down, and I can't. Instruction at home, and that consistency for providing instruction to students who remain at home. That consistency model, what we looked at as far as our data that came back, 70% are interested in coming back, 30% are interested in staying at home. As a vaccine starts to come out and reading some of those comments, I think a little bit we'll chip away at that 30% a little bit if the vaccine becomes a little more prevalent to community members as well. But that is a challenge when you have a group of students in front of you and a group of students who are trying to learn from home, and that equity. In some cases, it favors the students who are at home, and sometimes it favors the kids in the classroom. It depends from one instructional lesson to the next, sometimes just on the teaching style that comes up. So it changes from one classroom to the next, and it could change day by day as far as who's getting that attention. And that's another component to the unique craft of teaching that is very personalized. And sometimes it is easy for instructors to get distracted and move more towards the online students, and then move more towards the students sitting right there in front of them. It's very difficult to find that happy medium in between. I think that's something that all of our teachers are very conscientious of, and strive to make sure that they're providing all students with that equitable type of instruction, whether they're at home or in the classroom. You're welcome.
Any other board member have comments, questions, suggestions? Comment that I think.
John, I just thought of something. Since we're having such a problem in getting long-term substitutes, should we consider looking into increasing our pay for long-term substitutes? Is that a problem, pay, or is it just that the pool is just not there?
At this point, George, that's a good question. I don't think it's necessarily the financial incentive at this time for the long-term substitute position. I would say for the daily substitute position, we've held our rate at what we have always run in the past, which may have been discouraging to some individuals to come in and work for the daily substitute rate. But the model that we're looking at moving into this next phase is finding long-term substitutes who would be with us to serve in a capacity for those shorter FMLAs or shorter types of leaves of absence, have that person stay with us for the remainder of the school year. And then when they're not filling in for someone on a consistent basis, being able to basically serve as a building sub, where they would be able to be deployed from one classroom to the next on a daily basis. So there is, as far as that compensation package, that comes with step one of the teacher salary, which is $44,000, and then also comes with a full line of health benefits as well for the duration of their service with us. So I think from that end, I think we're in pretty good shape. It's something that we've not done in the past before, but working with the Federation, they have been interested in finding creative ways to get more substitutes in our buildings to help with that shortage, because in the end, it puts more stress and more anxiety on our staff when they have to cover for classes. So I think that creates a pathway for us if we can find some. And we have an advertisement out in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette starting this week. We have a permanent special education teacher vacancy, and then we also posted for a long-term substitute special education teacher at the elementary as well. That we're hopeful we'll get some strong candidates for both of those positions.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Any other board comments or questions? done, I would add my support to your plan, whether it's the 21st or the 25th or whatever day you and the team thinks makes the most sense. I'll echo Dr. Simzik's comment about the quality of the online education. I think our teachers are doing an amazing job, and they have an incredible challenge in front of them when you've got most of your classroom in person and a few online. Anticipating that is going to be the case for the most of the spring and moving forward, maybe there's a way that we can, I'll say, audit that experience and see if we can work with some of the families that are going to anticipate being remote for an extended period of time, and have them help us understand what elements of the experience are lacking and how we might be able to try to accommodate them and help improve that experience. Not an easy task, but something worth trying.
Thank you, Mr. Schreiber. And Mr. Jones, I'm not sure, I know we said this would be a difficult part with you not being presently with us. We would like to open it up for public comment at this time, for our board members to hear any input. I know many have had the opportunity to participate in our survey, but sometimes articulating it verbally as well adds a different dimension and character to the comment. So if you are interested in making a comment, at the bottom of the screen, there's a raise your hand. You may raise your hand at this time, and Mr. Jones will do his best to call on you and open up your mic for comment, and we'll see if we can hear you. Okay. So at this time, we don't have any interest in public comment. Looks like something did pop up there in the Q&A that I can see from here. Okay, if we could unmute that person and allow them to speak. And when you do speak, we just ask that you state your name and then also your address, please. Written question. Lab sessions if we continue remote. The challenge with just allowing lab sessions to be open is just that consistency of getting kids into the building. The different periods that instructors have would make that a challenge for getting students in just for a lab and then getting them back out of the building. The transportation on that issue would be a big challenge. So we'd have some students who would have to transport up for the entire day, and some only for just a period or so. So I think that would create an issue that I don't think we would be able to handle. Our goal is to open up the buildings and to keep them open so that hopefully we don't have that issue again. Okay. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Schreiber then, if the board is interested in making a motion at this time. After we at least open it up to public comment, we are able to do that.
If the entire group is in support of Dr. Kreider's suggestion, we could have someone make a motion, or if you guys collectively want me to make a motion. I think, Dr. Kreider, are you suggesting that the board authorizes you to open back up in a hybrid scenario 4 days a week on or before January 25th?
That's correct.
I thought all of our
All of
meetings,
them.
they all,
used to be.
yeah.
Okay. Glad you asked.
Well, I mean, considering that we're already on January 12th and, next week seems frankly to me a little bit soon, I would be in favor of the 25th following Dr. Kreider's recommendation. So I'm happy to make a motion that as of January 25th, we open up 4 days a week. per the superintendent's recommendation.
I second that.
Thank you. Any discussion on that motion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Craig. Dr. Kreider, do you have any other matters for the board?
No, as far as any other administrative reports, I do not have any other administrative reports scheduled for tonight. However, we will be meeting in executive session following the meeting to discuss, I believe, personnel, real estate, and contract negotiation.
Any other board member have any questions or comments before we adjourn? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.